Hi everybody, it's Tanya and welcome to today's video. It is this time of year again when the International Booker Prize 2021 has finally announced their long list, and I am incredibly excited because majority of the books on this long list really do sound very interesting and fascinating. To be honest, I haven't heard about almost any of these books. I've only heard about like 2 of them, and not like much. All the other books on this long list are completely new to me. So that is great. I like finding new authors and new books that I have never heard about, and that's why I'm so grateful to all of these prizes, because they really highlight certain books for me, books that I would have never read and found otherwise. Now let's talk about the books. My approach to this long list is going to be the same as with the Women's Prize for Fiction. I am not going to get the whole long list because I just cannot. I will choose the most interesting books out from the long list and I will read those. And then when the short list announced on the 22nd of April, I will get the whole short list, and hopefully some of the books that I found interesting from the long list will also coincide with the shortlisted books. So this way I will have to buy all these books. So that's kind of my approach, what it's going to be. Also, for this video, for the sake of this video, I have listed these books in the order of the most interesting to me to the least interesting to me. So when I will be buying those books, I will be following probably this order, in case nothing changes, because sometimes things can change. But I'm not committing completely to this list, but yeah, approximately this is like the order of the most interesting to the least interesting novel to me. Now let's start. The most interesting novel that I really want to read is The Perfect Nine by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, he is a Kenyan writer. A lot of people are looking forward to him receiving the Nobel Prize. This novel he wrote in his African language, and he was also the translator, because all the other books on this list, they have an author and a translator. Ngugi wa Thiong'o did everything himself. This is very impressive. This is really cool. Also, recently I watched one of his interviews where he was talking that one of the biggest problems currently for African literature is that African authors these days are writing books not in African languages. They're writing books in European languages, be it English, French or Portuguese. And he said that it's essential, it's very important for them to start writing in African languages in order to support the culture and to show the culture and show the language to the world. And with this book, I think he is giving his own example apparently, because he wrote it in the African language, and that is very exciting. Also, the book sounds very interesting. First of all, it's a novel in verse. Second of all, it blends Kenyan mythology, Kenyan folklore and allegory. Like, how interesting does this sound? The plot of the story follows a couple, a man and his wife, who flee their fatherland because of hunger and war, and they decide to settle on the foot of the Mount Kenya. They have 9 beautiful daughters, and after they settle, 99 suitors come to them to seek hands of their daughters. The couple says their daughters that you can choose your husbands yourself, but be wise about that. And so women come up with this test for their suitors. They decide to go up the Mount Kenya, which is quite a dangerous undertaking, to find the cure for their younger sister, because their younger sister cannot walk. And so yeah, they go up the mountain with all the 99 suitors, but the higher the mount they go, the less suitors remain because of all the difficulties that they face. And so it's said that sisters have to put their sharp minds and their bravery to the test and to the use in order to come back home. So yeah, this is like the premise of the book, and it sounds really interesting. Also, I know nothing about Kenyan folklore and mythology, and I feel like it will be very educational and interesting. So yeah, Gogi Wa Nyong'o, The Perfect Nine, is the first book on my list. The second novel on my list is At Night All Blood is Black by David Diot, translated by Edna Moskovakis from French. This novel sounds really interesting, and also I'm so curious to read it, because the plot is set during the time of the First World War, and we follow this Senegalese soldier who has never left his village before, but suddenly he finds himself fighting for the French army during the First World War. In his regiment he has a friend, but his friend during an attack is severely injured, and he asks our main character to shoot him in order to spare him the misery and in order to spare him the suffering. However, our main character cannot do this. Later he starts viewing this, his refusal to shoot his friend and to spare him his misery, he starts viewing this as an act of cowardice and treachery, and after that his descent into madness begins. He comes up with this task for himself, with this kind of quest for himself. Every night he goes to the German territory and he kills one German soldier. He cuts off the soldier's hand and he starts collecting those hands. At first, other soldiers in his regiment view him as a hero, as a very brave man, but later they see that something is off and they first get afraid of him and then they try to get rid of him. It is also said that the book has some elements of dark magic, and it's also blends oral storytelling traditions with the gritty day-to-day journalistic horror of life in the trenches. David Diop's At Night All Blood is Black is a dazzling tale of a man's descent into madness. The premise sounds really interesting and really good, and I think and it became a bestseller in France as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward also to reading that book. The third novel on my list is Minor Detail by Adania Shibli, translated by Elizabeth Jacquet from the Arabic. This is the novel that was, I think, shortlisted for the National Book Award last year. That's like, I've heard about it. I was reluctant to get it because it just sounds terrifying. I was a little bit reluctant to get it, but seeing this book on the Booker Longlist as well, I really want to give it a try now. We follow a story of two women, but the stories are set in different time periods. So the first story is set in the middle of the 20th century, when a 16-year-old teenage girl is brutally raped and murdered by Israeli soldiers. The other narrative is set in the present day, and there is this other Palestinian woman who finds out about this forgotten story of this forgotten girl, and she becomes kind of obsessed with this story because it happened exactly 25 years before she was born, and apparently she starts researching the story and she tries to find out more about this girl. And it is said that Adania Shibli masterfully overlays these two translucent narratives of exactly the same length to evoke a present forever haunted by the past. So yeah, this is the third book on my list. Book number 4 is I Live in the Slums by Ken Shua, translated by Karen Gernand. I need to read Chinese fiction because I haven't read Chinese fiction before. I don't think I have. I've never tried. I do have one of Chinese classics, but it's so big, so I haven't read it yet. So yeah, I really want to give a try to Chinese fiction. This is a collection of short stories, and apparently this author is very well known in China, which again I haven't heard about her before. So I'm very curious to explore her writing. I know that she has a few novels also translated into English currently, so I will try her short stories first and then try her novels. However, her writing is said to be something different, because in the description it says that Kenshua's stories observe no obvious conventions of plot or characterization. That is the only rule they follow. Instead, they tend to rely on disordered and poetic structure, philosophical wonder, and emotional rigor. Combining the elements of both Chinese materiality, the love for physical things, and Western abstract thinking, Kenshua invites her readers into an immersive landscape that blends empirical fact and illusion, mixes the physical and spiritual, and probes the space between consciousness and oblivion. This sounds very different, unlike anything I have read before. So definitely want to give it a try and see how it's going to work. Because yeah, apparently she is a really well-known author. Book number 5 is from Argentina, and it is The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez and translated by Megan McDowell. This is also a collection of short stories, but these are apparently like creepy and scary short stories set in Buenos Aires. Something I like is the description. So, welcome to Buenos Aires, a city throbbing with murderous intentions and morbid desires, where missing children come back from the dead and unearthed bones carry terrible curses. These brilliant, unsettling tales of revenge, witchcraft, fetishes, disappearances, and urban madness spill over with women and girls whose dark inclinations will lead them over the edge. And also the praise for this book. Mariana Enriquez is a mesmerizing writer who demands to be read. Like Bolaño, she is interested in matters of life and death, and her fiction hits with the full force of a train. Like, it should be something really good. Book number 6 is Russian book, which, like, I haven't heard of this author before, and I haven't heard of this book before, but then when I checked her on the internet, she received quite a few Russian awards already, so that's exciting. I've also encountered one interesting Russian writer for myself. That's cool. If I can find this book in Russian, because currently it's kind of sold out. But yeah, if it reappears again in Russian, I would definitely prefer and would like to read it in Russian. The book I'm talking about is In Memory of Memory by Maria Stepanova, translated from Russian by Sasha Dugdale. I think this is her kinda autobiography based on her own family life and family experiences, from what I understand. It tells a family story of this one writer. Her aunt dies and she comes to her apartment and she starts kind of cleaning this apartment, and she comes across a lot of different small things that her aunt had and was kind of preserving, and through these things she kind of learns how her family has been surviving through the tumultuous 20th century in Russia. And so this book is apparently an exploration of personal and cultural memory. Also, Stepanova apparently dives into various forms of writing. So there is memoir, there is essays, fiction, travelogue, historical fiction. So yeah, it's an interesting book to try and to explore. So yeah, I'm very curious about that as well. Then at number 7 comes also a very interesting novel about scientists. The book is called When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatat, translated by Adrian Nathan West. This book follows a few famous scientists from the 20th century. So among them there is Albert Einstein, there is Erwin Schrödinger, Werner Heisenberg, and all of them are working on like their scientific discoveries. And it is said that using extraordinary epoch-defining moments from the history of science, Benjamin Labatat plunges us into exhilarating territory between fact and fiction, progress and destruction, genius and madness. I don't really know much about this book after this synopsis, what it's going to be about, but I think it received a lot of praise. It's quite popular. So yeah, I want to try and explore it myself. Also, just the topic of science, how it affects our life. Is it good? Is it bad? What are the dangers that we face with our science? It's a very interesting topic, so yeah, this is another very interesting book on the long list. At number 8 comes a Dutch novel, Summer Brothers, by Jeb Robin, translated by David Doherty. I think this book is going to be my cup of tea. I think it's going to be for me, because judging from the synopsis, it is something about two brothers and brotherly affection and brotherly relationship. One of our brothers is a disabled boy, and his other brother is perfectly healthy and he takes care of him. It is also said in the synopsis that the novel grapples with the consequences of carelessness and the abuse of power and trust, even if the violation is unintentional. So that sounds interesting, because like, from what I understand, then maybe the brother who is able and who is like healthy will betray somehow his younger brother. I don't know. Yeah, brotherly love, family relationship, that's like my topic. I love this topic. So I hope that I am going to also enjoy it and love it. Then at number 9 I have The War of the Poor by Eric Villard, translated by Mark Polizzotti. This is a historical novel, which also sounds interesting, and it's also about a topic in history which I know nothing about, so I think if I read it, it will be very educational. It recounts German peasant war of 1524 till 1525. Apparently this was a time when the poor of Germany, they rebelled against the Catholics and the Protestants, and they were led by a number of spiritual leaders, and the story of one of the leaders is told in this book. The leader's name was Thomas Münzer. He apparently was a very enigmatic, determined and energetic person. So yeah, apparently just going to be an account of his life and his activities during that war. So yeah, I know nothing actually about that time period in Germany, so it would be interesting to learn something. At number 10 comes Swedish novel Wretchedness by Andrzej Tichy, translated by Nicola Smalley. In this novel we follow two main characters. One of them is a successful cellist, and he comes across this very poor young man who is also a drug addicted person. Our cellist realizes that it could be him, and he starts reminiscing on his childhood and his youth, and he just kind of thinks what brought him to his success, what brought him to his current state. And it is said in the synopsis that wretchedness is a blistering trip through the underbelly of Europe's cities. I think this is going to be a very character-driven story, which I usually very much enjoy, so that's why this book really kind of sounds very interesting to me. Number 11 comes The Employees by Olga Raven, translated by Martin Aitken. This is a sci-fi novel set on a spaceship in the 22nd century, and apparently it follows stories of humans working on that spaceship and humanoid robots. And then they come across this one planet where they find a lot of interesting things, and I guess the novel asks question of what it means to be human, what makes people people, and how are they different from robots, something like that. I don't know, but yeah, it's a sci-fi novel. I'm usually not a very big reader of sci-fi. I will wait for the reviews on this book, if the reviews will be favorable, because it does sound interesting. I like the question of what it means to be human, what makes us human. Like, it's a very philosophical and very interesting question. So yeah, I will wait for the reviews. If they are favorable, I will also read this book, because it does sound interesting. It's just that sci-fi is not always my genre. Usually, like, I'm not very much a sci-fi reader, but yeah, sounds great. Then at number 12 I have An Inventory of Losses by Judith Shalansky, translated by J.K. Smith. I think this is a collection also of short stories, or maybe kind of short essays. It looks into the topic of memory, and it also looks at the things that have disappeared from the world, kind of things that we have lost, and what it means to our present life, I guess. Interesting. But also I don't really have like a clear idea of what the book is about. Is it a short story collection? Is it essays? But yeah, just the topic of memory is a very interesting topic. It's just that, again, I want to watch some other people's like reviews and see if they're favorable, if the book actually was interesting, because it kind of sounds so. But yeah, there are some other books that are like of more interest to me than this one currently, so that's why it's like quite low on my list. But yeah, if it will be great, I might give it a read, or I might not, we will see. The last novel on my list, which I was surprised actually that it's the last on my list, but I don't know, just like the topic isn't, I don't think that the topic speaks to me. So yeah, it's a book by a Georgian author. The book is called The Pear Field by Nana Ektimishvili, translated by Elizabeth Highway. In this book, apparently we follow a story of this young orphaned girl who lives in an asylum, I think, with children who are not mentally developed. And these children, they experience a lot of abuse from the workers of the asylum, and this girl, she really wants to escape, but she also has a friend, a young boy whom she loves and whom she wants to help. And then there is this American couple coming to this asylum and wanting to adopt a child, and apparently she will do everything to give her friend this chance of better life. So that's like the premise of the book. It just sounds very dark and very grim and very sad, so that's why I don't think that I want to read it. But yeah, if it's on the short list, I will definitely read it. If it's not on the short list, oh, maybe I won't. We will see. All the long list of the International Booker Prize 2021 in the order of the most interesting novel to me to the least interesting novel to me. Let me know in the comments which books do you want to read from the long list, if you want to read any books from the long list, if you follow the prize. For now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a very good day. I hope you are staying safe, and I will see you soon in my next videos. Thank you very much. Bye.